COINTELPRO stands for Counterintelligence Program, primarily run by the FBI as a covert action program against domestic dissidents. The use of infiltration, psychological warfare, harassment through the legal system, and the use of extralegal force and violence, including murder, probably began in the 1950s and is now a permanent feature of U.S. government. Targets included the civil rights movement, the women's rights movement, the anti-war movement, the environmental movement, opposition political parties, and basically any progressive group in American society. The Senate and congressional hearings into the activities of the FBI and CIA were crushed.
What part of that sounds like a democracy? I ran for sheriff in 2012 against Leo Medashevsky, who didn't put up a single campaign sign prior to the election, after the primaries, when he beat Robert Hall. I don't know if the election was fixed. What I do know is that Isabella County would have been shut down had I won the election, and or I probably would have been murdered to keep this from the light. The truth is, criminals can't prosecute criminals. It's not an option. But if an unknown criminal, let's say a sheriff, is perpetrating crimes against the people, and the prosecuting attorney is perpetrating, crimes against the people, any people, the work that they've done along the lines of legitimately prosecuting criminals is all work that doesn't mean anything. What I'm saying here is you can't be the sheriff and then rob banks on the weekend. It doesn't work that way. So I didn't really want to be exposed to this. I've never had a whole lot of faith in people that run around unsupervised. I've been an employer my whole life, and basically that's what our governments do. They run around unsupervised. They have this cloak of superiority. They hide behind their closed doors, try and get an audience with the Isabella County prosecuting attorney at their office. It's nearly impossible. You're shuffled into this vestibule. It's probably, 6 by 8. They got a little reception window there with bulletproof glass, And you got to talk to somebody that's not a county prosecutor, and maybe you'll get an audience, maybe you won't. The day I served Larry Burdick in our lawsuit against Isabella County, it was in that little vestibule. Getting an audience with these people is just crazy. I filed for a personal protection order against Sheriff Deputy Clinton Steiner, and my prosecutor represented him in court against my request for a PPO. This is just backwards. I objected to the judge, saying that, my tax dollars shouldn't be paying for this guy's defense. I'm trying to legitimately obtain a personal protection order against Sheriff Deputy Clinton Steiner for his active participation in looting my home. And where do you start? Where do you stop? How do you draw the lines in the sand? Nobody really takes the time to understand how the court systems work. You go in front of a judge. The judge is a member of the Bar Association. The court-appointed attorney is a member of the Bar Association. That everybody is there working against you. And if your agenda or your plan or your program brings any doubt or any shadow or any thing that might damage the public trust into question, then you're immediately shut down. And Judge so-and-so said this, so that's just the way it is. And what, do you get to appeal? Where does it go from there? It's a financial holocaust to trying to get anything accomplished in the courts today, particularly when you're calling the court's operation into question. And I think that's got to be the crux of it. If you've got a legitimate complaint against law enforcement or county employees or this or that. It's all pretty much taboo to talk about. Anyways, I wanted to share this little clip here. There's Monarch, Chapter 8, COINTELPRO is a program that was discovered for targeting and harassing people that were in a position or could possibly shed light on the way things are today in our courts. I'm not saying that, if two people have a problem, they can't settle it in court. That's not what I'm saying at all. In fact, that's the pretext for everything. And then you come along and you have a complaint against the court, or a complaint against the government, or a complaint against, the chief judge's buddy and golf partner, the sheriff. It's going to be real hard to be taken seriously, because you're asking a friend of a friend in a system that's really screwed up all around to basically lend any credibility to that by making a decision that is right, that is just. So it's got to be one of the biggest methods of harassment today, our court systems, when it comes to rights violations and calling into question and trying to hold criminally accountable criminals that are committing crimes. If you go on YouTube and type in police brutality, you get you get a lot of results. Okay, you get a lot of returns, and more people are taking their video cameras and having them on and readily available, and the police don't like it because consciously or subconsciously, regardless of what the police think they can get away with, if they have to explain it on camera or have to explain what's been recorded by a camera, they get real nervous. I've got the police post commander in Mount Pleasant, Michigan, telling me that he gets to vote on my constitutional rights. Really? I mean, really? And I was sitting there, and he could tell by the way I was sitting there that I was confrontational. Well, if you're going to tell me that, you get to vote on my natural rights, my constitutional rights, yeah, maybe I would take a little bit of a defensive posture, because you, Larry Schlogel, whatever the hell your name is, you don't have that right, okay? And everybody knows it but you. So if you haven't seen my gun board video, I would encourage you to go back and take a look at that. He says it right on camera. He gets to vote on whether or not people get constitutional rights. And, it's that whole mentality that's got to get changed. It's got to get turned around. And it's for that reason I'm going to get a lot more vocal on the internet here. That, and to protect myself, because making an enemy out of Michigan State Police Post Commander is not something that I said I wanted to do when I grow up. I want to make enemies of government. That's not what I want to do. I spent 6 years in the military defending our country. I swore an oath to protect and preserve the Constitution of the United States, and that's an oath that, became part of who I am. And, foreign or domestic corruption, terrorism, it was so well known when the Constitution was written that the threat to our country doesn't have to be external, and that it could most likely come from an internal source, and that's what we're seeing today. These people are employed and they get paid to work for us, and they're working against us in so many ways. But I'll leave that to another video. Anyways, I've been studying the common law, and basically I've discovered that there really is no way to win against government in court, because they're not only defending, they're the judges. You know, finding a lawyer to handle our case is never been even feasible. Jeffrey Feiger didn't want to get involved with our case because it's so deep rooted in corruption and involves so many people. You know, if you can pull away a weak part of the herd and go after that, you might get somewhere. But if your home was looted by God only knows how many members of the Isabella County Sheriff's Department, and you want to prosecute criminally, you're wow, what, just pissing in the wind. You know, there is no viable recourse. You go to the Attorney General, Michigan Attorney General Bill Schuette, and his website says, well, if you got a problem with the police, you got to go to their department. They usually have internal affairs. But that's not always the case, and is not the case in Isabella County. But his only other alternative is to go talk to the police's friend, who are always prosecuting charges brought to him from them, and ask them to prosecute their friends. And that's not going to happen either. So there's just this big, huge cycle where, you know, for reasons that don't make sense, these people have established a situation or a position where they're the only ones in charge of who can prosecute criminally, and have set themselves above the law. And it's just not right. I mean, I don't care how you look at it, it's not right. And in my case now, they're coming after me for whatever. I don't know. I'm definitely been a thorn in the side of a great many people here in Isabella County for the last 3 years, trying to bring some attention to my case that nobody in government, nobody in law enforcement, nobody in the judicial system wants to see the light of day. So it's obviously been a huge uphill struggle. You know, I don't have to tell you that, you know, your home and your property is most sacred. In Isabella County, those are the things that were taken from my family, not just me, but my family. You know, my wife and 2 kids. We lost our home and all of its contents, or 95% of its contents, you know, by law enforcement. So this is a police state. You know, whenever you have a criminal allegation against a police officer and nobody's willing to hear it, that's a police state. It's the police for the police. And they've, from a public trust perspective, from what I've viewed on the internet here over the last 3 years, is that law enforcement is losing the public trust. And what are they doing to combat that? There's no more training, there's no more this, there's no more that. There's push everybody through the courts, you know, get as many fines collected and people arrested as you can, and we'll buy armored trucks, because, you know, once the people stop believing in the police, you know, we're going to need these armaments, these military upgrades to handle what? The riots, because the police fell out of favor with those that they were charged to protect. You know, it's a bad cycle, and it's a cycle that really needs to stop. I mean, police departments everywhere need to start working on the public trust legitimately, and not saving themselves out, you know, exempting themselves from criminal charges because they're the police. I mean, you hear about a shooting where somebody's shot dead, and what's the very next thing you hear? Well, you know, this guy was handcuffed, sitting down, was shot, and the officer's use of force was justified and authorized under self-defense. I mean, really? You know, once they say that, then, you know, it's like everybody is mesmerized by authority having the last say. You know, these criminals get the last word, and we're just supposed to suck it up. I don't agree, and I never have, and I don't believe that people are above the law. And right now, my county, in conjunction with, I guess, the federal government, based on my criminal complaint against the people in my county, are investigating me for some bullshit criminal investigation just to what? Shut me up, throw me in jail? You know, this is really sad. You know, on top of not being able to find justice for myself and my family, I'm looking at what? Having to defend myself in court against bullshit criminal charges that are, you know, being worked on by who? The Michigan Attorney General? You know, Rick Snyder's office? You know, all these people are aware of my criminal allegations against Isabella County Sheriff's Department and the prosecutor's office and the chief judge. But none of that really seems to matter now. You know, they're all actively investigating criminal complaints against me for what? Sitting in my little house? You know, they'll come up with something. You know, that's been one of my fears for the last 3 years, is that they would come up with something to shut me up. And we're already at the 16-minute mark, so I'm gonna discontinue this now. I'm gonna be on an interesting call tonight. There are a great number of people that are not taking it anymore. They're pissed off, and I don't support violence whatsoever. But I do support justice. Okay, from my perspective, and a lot of other folks' perspective, the intentional destruction of our country by destroying its judicial system is fraud. Is a form of terror that we all have to deal with. We, at least, you know, and at different points. I mean, people who have not been exposed, like myself. I was a professional builder for a very long time, and it was one of my bullet points on my mission statement to stay out of court. I didn't want to have to sue anybody, and I didn't want to have anybody suing me. So, you know, as a contractor, that's a pretty big goal, and I managed to do that. And I don't like the courts. I don't like them at all. But there's a reason for that, and if there's also a reason why Chief Judge Paul Chamberlain in Isabella County, the chief judge, the last case I went to sit in on and just witness, I heard him order all portable electronic devices turned off and completely removed from the courtroom. And there's a really good reason for that. If people aren't allowed to see what goes on in courtrooms, then, you know, it's our word against theirs. Now, if you haven't already, check out Constitution Enforcement Officers on Facebook. I'm a co-sponsor of that site, and it's growing every day. What we need to do as a people to regain justice in our country is start recording everything that goes on. You know, freedom of the press is the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. Freedom of the press. Now, are we gonna, you know, let these judges that don't want the corruption in their courtrooms recorded to tell us that we don't have the First Amendment right, freedom of the press, in a public place where they're paid by us, the public, to perform a function which they're clearly taking their own distinct advantages with, you know, deciding cases in favor of their friends and dismissing cases that are attempting to prosecute their friends, and so on and so forth. You know, you have to ask yourself the question, why is it such a big deal to record what goes on in the public courtroom, in our public courthouse, our public courthouse, not the judges, you know, but they've taken this proprietary stance over their job, over the courthouse, all of these public facilities that are owned by the freaking public. You know, it's like me telling you can't flush the toilet in your house. We all know how silly that is, but when we go to record our judges, and I've seen transcripts screwed up on purpose in my case against the county. I ordered a transcript, and it isn't the full transcript. It's not what I should have gotten in return. It was shortened tremendously. And how do we prove that? They get to go and alter the records and change the facts and do what they want to do and produce a document that they claim is the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And then we're told to just take their frickin' word for it. Well, these kind of things need to stop. It's our First Amendment right, freedom of the press. We need to know what's going on. And we need to start knowing what's going on in our courthouses and our courtrooms. And it's our duty, okay? And we've been sufficiently lacking in our duty to oversee what goes on in these places for a very long time, and I'm as guilty as the next person. My goal was to never go in a courtroom. And in the last few years, I haven't been able to avoid it. So whenever I'm tasked with a job, I always do my best. And what we have here today is me attempting to do my best, and that's really pissing off a lot of people. So now I'm under criminal investigation as a terrorist, which is, it's crazy. It's crazy, and it needs to stop. It needs to end. And again, I'm totally nonviolent. I don't have any room for that in my life, especially now. I mean, the Michigan State Police Post commander, in my gun board, I applied for a concealed carry permit. He went so far as to practice medicine, practice psychology, and determine that I was confrontational and a threat to myself and to others, suicidal and homicidal, basically. And what that does for all the policing agencies, it's just a big target on me that I don't need. My kids don't need. My wife doesn't need. It's horribly unfair. But I am being made a target by the likes of a police post commander in Mount Pleasant who just felt like, practicing medicine, denying me a concealed carry permit. So anyways, that's it for now. More later.